My name is Elijah Carter from Nebraska. I thought I knew who I was, until a simple DNA test on my 30th birthday revealed a truth that shattered everything. I wasn't adopted. I was stolen. And the people I called mom and dad, they'd been lying to me my entire life. Before we dive in, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, because this isn't just a story about lies and betrayal. It's about uncovering a truth buried for 30 years. And the revenge that came with it. You don't want to miss this. Turning 30 didn't feel like a milestone. There was no party, no big cake, just a few beers with coworkers and a quiet drive home through the quiet neighborhoods of Lincoln. I'd signed up for the DNA test on a whim. One of those genetic heritage studies offered at the community health fair. A nurse named Darla had asked if I'd be willing to donate a cheek swab for population research. I figured, why not, free test. Might be fun to find out I was 2% Scandinavian or something. What I didn't expect was for that swab to unravel my entire life. The call came the morning after my birthday. I was still in bed, scrolling aimlessly, when the number popped up, Kansas City area code. I almost let it go to voicemail. I wish I had. Hi, is this Eli Jensen? Speaking. This is Darla Mahoney from the Midwest Genetic Linkage Study. You participated a few weeks ago. Do you remember? Yeah, sure, I said, sitting up. What's going on? She hesitated. I could hear papers rustling in the background. I'm reaching out because, well, we encountered something unusual with your results. I laughed a little. Let me guess, I'm adopted. Another pause. Too long. Too still, Mr. Jensen, that might not be a joke. The room went quiet. My heart felt like it dropped into my stomach. She continued carefully, like each word might explode. Your DNA doesn't match any members of the Jensen family tree, at least not in any conventional lineage. Statistically, you share 0 maternal or paternal alleles with your listed parents. I blinked. So, what does that mean? That there was a mistake. We've triple-checked, she said. And what's more, your DNA flagged in a cold case database. A missing infant from Nebraska. 1994, that was the year I was born. I stood up so fast I nearly dropped the phone. Whose name? I asked. There's a woman, Rachel Carter. Her baby disappeared 2 days after birth from a small hospital in Beatrice. The case was never solved. The details match your profile. I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. We're obligated to inform both parties if a match is this strong, Darla said gently. Would you be willing to talk to her? I whispered, yes, before I even realized I meant it. After we hung up, I sat in silence for what felt like an hour. The walls of my childhood bedroom suddenly looked foreign. Framed family photos on the dresser felt like props in a stage play I didn't audition for. I wasn't who I thought I was. And if this was true, if I really wasn't Paul and Linda Jensen's biological son, then what else had they lied about? Because if they weren't my parents, who were they, and who the hell was I? I didn't bring it up right away. I waited until dinner, Wednesday night. Like always. Baked chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans. Same meal, same awkward silence. But that night, everything tasted wrong. The food was fine. I just couldn't stop seeing them differently, Paul and Linda Jensen. The people who raised me. The people I now wasn't sure I could trust. I waited until we were halfway through eating, then I said, I got a weird phone call today. Mom looked up, fork halfway to her mouth. Oh. Dad didn't look at me. He just kept cutting his chicken, from that genetic study I signed up for. The one at the health fair. She nodded slowly. I remember. What about it? They said my DNA doesn't match either of you. Not even close. A pause. The kind that stretches just long enough to confirm something deep in your gut. Then Dad spoke. Not defensive. Not confused. Just, resigned. What did you expect, Eli? You're not our blood. Mom flinched. Paul, but it was too late. The words were out, I dropped my fork. So it's true. Mom set her napkin on the table, like we were about to have a polite conversation. Her voice was soft, but flat. You were never supposed to find out. I stared at them. What the hell does that mean? It means, Dad said, finally looking at me, that we raised you. We gave you everything. We loved you. But you're not my parents. Mom looked down at her plate. Not biologically, no. Then who are you? What did you do? My voice cracked. I could feel my chest tightening. Where did I come from? They said nothing. I pushed back from the table. Say something. Anything. Mom stood, walked over to the sink, gripped the counter like it might steady her spinning world. You were left. Abandoned. We took you in. I shook my head. That's not what they said. The woman from the study, they matched me to a missing infant from Beatrice. A woman named Rachel Carter. That baby was reported stolen. The sound that escaped Mom's lips wasn't quite a gasp. But it wasn't surprise either. We didn't steal you, she whispered. We saved you. Dad stood, now towering over the table. Enough, Linda. No. I shouted. Not enough. Not even close. I need the truth. Did you take me? Did you fake a birth certificate? Did you let some woman think her baby was dead while you played house with someone else's life? Silence, not denial, not outrage, just silence. That's when I knew, everything I thought I was, Eli Jensen, son of Paul and Linda, Nebraska-born and corn-fed, was a lie built so carefully, they thought I'd never question it. But now the cracks were showing, and there was no going back. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Mom's voice, flat and emotionless, saying, you were never supposed to find out. The words rattled around in my chest like a loose screw. By 3 a.m., I was at the kitchen table with my laptop, searching Beatrice Hospital baby stolen 1994. I didn't expect much. But it was right there, front page scan of the Beatrice Daily Sun, dated May 3, 1994, infant disappears from hospital nursery. The story was short. A mother named Rachel Carter had given birth to a healthy baby boy 2 days prior. When she woke up from a routine sedative, the child was gone. Staff claimed someone must have slipped in and out without being noticed. A hospital nurse named Joyce Renner was on leave shortly after. No charges. No answers, just a blurry composite sketch of the missing baby, and when I saw it, my breath caught. That sketch might as well have been my high school yearbook photo, same round face. Same deep-set eyes. Even the faint dimple in the left cheek. I sat there, staring at it, numb. Underneath the sketch, the caption read, Elijah Michael Carter. Last seen May 2, 1994. Weight, 7 pounds 8 ounces. Brown hair. Gray eyes. That was me, that had always been me, not Eli Jensen, Elijah Carter. I whispered the name out loud. It felt strange on my tongue. Like slipping into someone else's shoes. But deep down, it felt real. Right, I clicked deeper into the archives, searching for Rachel Carter. It wasn't hard. Over the years, she'd given multiple interviews, still holding on to hope, still asking anyone for answers. She never stopped looking. In one piece from 2014, she said, somewhere out there, my son is living a life that should have been ours. I just want him to know he was never forgotten. I closed the browser and just sat there in the dark. I thought about all the birthdays I'd had, all the school plays, the scraped knees and science fairs. Every moment of my life I thought belonged to me, but had been stolen from someone else. My life wasn't just a lie, it was someone else's grief. I suddenly hated the walls around me, the neat photos, the smell of old laundry, the damn embroidered "Bless This Home" sign over the sink. They'd stolen me, they built a life on someone else's pain. And the worst part, they were still pretending. It was love. That's when I knew I had to find her, not just for me, but for Rachel, for the mother who never stopped waiting. I met Rachel Carter on a chilly Sunday afternoon in Omaha. We agreed to meet at a small diner just off Dodge Street, neutral ground, somewhere public, safe. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't even know what to wear. I showed up 10 minutes early. She was already there, sitting in a booth near the back window. She had a cup of coffee between her hands, fingers wrapped around it like she was trying to keep them from shaking. She looked up when I walked in, and for a second, neither of us moved. Then she stood slowly. "Eli," she said, though her voice cracked right at the end. I nodded. "Yeah. Or Elijah, I guess." She pressed a hand to her mouth and let out a sound I've never heard before, half a sob, half a laugh. We stood there for a second, awkward and uncertain, until she reached out and hugged me, not one of those polite, stranger hugs. This one was real. I froze. Then I hugged her back. She smelled like cinnamon and something warm, something familiar in a way that made my chest ache. We sat. I couldn't stop looking at her. She had kind eyes, weathered but sharp. Her hair was a deep chestnut brown, streaked with silver. She smiled every time our eyes met, even when tears welled up. "I don't even know where to begin," I said. "You don't have to," she whispered. "You're here. That's enough for today." But eventually, we did begin. She told me about the night I was taken. How she'd given birth on a rainy Friday. How exhausted she was, how the nurses told her to rest. She remembered being drowsy, too drowsy, like something had been slipped into her fore. When she woke up, I was gone. She called for help, screamed. The hospital staff brushed her off. Then panicked. Security was called. The police, they searched for weeks, nothing. I told them someone had taken you. But no one believed me. They said maybe I'd forgotten something. That I was confused. Hormonal. Delusional. My stomach twisted. "I fought them for years," she said. "I went to the press, the courts, even tried hiring private investigators when I could afford it. I never gave up looking." I asked her why she thought I was still alive. She smiled sadly. "Because I knew. A mother always knows." We sat there for hours, trading fragments of two different lives that should have been one. I showed her pictures from birthdays she missed. She told me about the house she had prepared for a baby who never came home, and by the end, we weren't strangers anymore. She wasn't just the woman I'd read about, she was my mother, and I was her son, stolen. Hidden, but finally found. I thought finding my birth mother would bring some peace. But instead, it only opened more doors, each one leading deeper into a hallway full of shadows. Rachel gave me what files she'd managed to keep from the original investigation, police reports, faded photocopies, even an old manila envelope with personal scribbled on the front. She'd never stopped looking. Never stopped digging. That night, I went through the records like I was back in college, pulling an all-nighter. I read through every line until the words blurred together. Then, one name kept jumping out at me, Joyce Renner, the nurse on duty the night I vanished. She was the last staff member to check in on Rachel. She administered the sedative. She noted in the logs that I was resting peacefully at 2:17 a.m., at 3:04 a.m., I was gone. Joyce Renner was never questioned beyond the first day of the investigation. She left for personal reasons just a week later. No forwarding address. No follow-up. According to Rachel, the hospital administration buried it. Too afraid of a lawsuit or bad publicity, when I tried to pull up her file through public records, I hit a wall. Nothing after 1995. No tax records, no DMV hits, no property deeds. It was like she had evaporated, or been erased. The next day, I drove back to Lincoln and walked into the county clerk's office. I asked to see my adoption papers. The woman behind the glass looked at me like I'd asked to borrow her car. "There's nothing here," she said, frowning at the screen. "We have a birth certificate for an Eli Jensen, born to Paul and Linda Jensen, but no formal adoption records. That doesn't make sense, I said. There has to be something, paperwork, court documents, anything. She double-checked. Then again. Still nothing. Are you saying I wasn't legally adopted? I asked. She hesitated, then leaned in a little. I probably shouldn't say this, but it looks like someone inserted your certificate directly into the record system. That's not standard. That's irregular. I walked out with my hands shaking. There it was, proof I wasn't adopted. I was taken, and whoever had helped them do it knew exactly how to disappear afterward. The Jensens didn't just lie to me. They broke the law, falsified a document, bribed someone in the hospital, and made sure no one ever questioned the sweet couple who showed up with a newborn like magic. They didn't rescue me, they kidnapped me, they stole 30 years of someone else's story and called it love, and now I knew the truth, but the world didn't, not yet. They were sitting on the back porch when I got there. Linda had her gardening gloves on, even though the flower beds were bone dry and half the hydrangeas were wilted. Paul was drinking sweet tea and pretending not to see me walk up the drive. I didn't knock. I didn't announce myself. I just stood at the foot of the porch and said, "We need to talk." Linda looked up, squinting into the sun. Eli, no. Not Eli. Not anymore. Paul's face tensed. He set his glass down with a quiet thud. This about that woman? You mean my mother? I asked, my voice low, sharp. He didn't flinch. Of course he didn't. He'd always been the strong, silent type. The kind that hides behind logic and calls it love. I found the reports, I said. The news clippings. The birth certificate with no adoption record. The nurse who vanished. Linda's hand started to shake. She pulled off her gloves and sat down slowly. Eli, please. No more lies, I snapped. You didn't adopt me. You stole me. You let a grieving woman suffer for 30 years because you lost your child and decided I was your replacement. We didn't steal you, Paul said, rising from his chair. We saved you. Saved me. I took a step forward. From what? A mother who never gave up on me. A life that actually belonged to me. Linda's voice cracked. We were told you'd been abandoned. That no one wanted you. By who? That nurse? Joyce Renner? They froze. I know about her. About how she left the hospital right after I disappeared. About how she can't be found. I leaned forward. And you're going to tell me everything, right now. Linda started crying. Big, silent tears that soaked the knees of her jeans. Paul just stared at me, jaw clenched like a trap about to spring. Then he said, you were ours the moment we held you. That's what we believed. Believed? I echoed, laughing bitterly. You lied to the cops. Faked records. Let another woman think her baby was dead. That's not belief. That's betrayal. We gave you everything, Linda whispered. A home. A family. No, I said. You gave me a life built on someone else's grief. A lie dressed up as love. And I'm done pretending it didn't happen. They didn't try to stop me as I turned and walked away, didn't call after me, didn't explain, because they knew, they'd built a life on stolen ground. And I had finally dug deep enough to hit the truth. The detective's office smelled like stale coffee and dust. A stack of old case files sat in the corner like they hadn't been touched in years. Detective Lacey Warren was in her mid-50s, tired but sharp-eyed. She'd read over the papers I brought, Rachel's files. The DNA test results, the original missing child report. When she finally looked up, her face was careful. Too careful. This is a hell of a situation, Elijah. Hearing my real name still felt like putting on a jacket that didn't quite fit, but I nodded. I want charges filed, I said. They stole me. They forged documents. They've lied for 30 years. She let out a slow breath. I believe you. And I believe your mother. But here's the problem, Nebraska law has a statute of limitations for kidnapping. The clock ran out years ago. I blinked. Wait. You're saying there's nothing you can do? She tapped her pen on the table. Not criminally. We can't arrest them for a crime the system considers too old. That nurse, Joyce Renner, she vanished in '94. Without her testimony, we've got nothing tying your adoptive parents to the actual abduction. The forged birth certificate? If it was filed more than 5 years ago, it's outside the window too. So they just get to walk free? I asked, my voice rising. Like none of this ever happened? I didn't say that, she replied. There are other options. Civil suits. Press coverage. We can reopen the case in the missing persons database. But in terms of legal justice? The laws were written to protect the system, not people like you. I sat there, stunned. 30 years, that's how long Rachel had waited, how long I'd lived someone else's life, and now the law told me it was too late to matter, too late to count. I walked out of the station feeling numb. I called Rachel that night and told her everything. She didn't cry. She just sighed and said, I figured. I've dealt with the law before. But it's not right, I said. They should pay for what they did. They will, she said. Just not the way you hoped. And she was right, Paul and Linda Jensen would never stand trial. There would be no courtroom, no orange jumpsuits, no judge slamming down a gavel. But they would pay, because I had a voice, and I had the truth, and sometimes, truth is louder than handcuffs, sometimes revenge doesn't come from a jail cell, it comes from making sure the world knows what they did, and never letting them hide from it again. If the system wouldn't give me justice, then I'd take the next best thing, the truth. And I'd make damn sure the whole world heard it. It started with a post, a simple photo, me as a toddler sitting on Paul's lap in our backyard, grinning like a kid who had no idea the people raising him weren't his real parents. I captioned it, that's me. Stolen. Raised by strangers. Here's the story they never wanted told. I posted it to TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, even Twitter. I kept it raw, honest. No theatrics. Just the facts, my DNA test, the cold case, the fake birth certificate, and Rachel, my real mother, who spent 30 years searching for a baby she thought was gone forever. It exploded overnight. By morning, my phone was a brick of notifications. DMs from journalists, comments from strangers across the country. Thousands of people wanted to know more, so I told them. I recorded a video. Just me, sitting on the porch, Nebraska wind in the background, walking through every detail. I didn't hold back. I named names. I showed documents. I shared the sketch of baby Elijah Carter from 1994, side by side with a photo of me now. No one could deny it. The local news picked it up first. Then regional affiliates. And soon, I was getting emails from producers in New York and LA asking if I'd go on air, but the part that mattered most? The comments from people in my own town. Lincoln. People I grew up around. Parents from my old school. Neighbors. Church friends. Some couldn't believe it. Others said they always felt something was off. But almost everyone turned on Paul and Linda, once respected. That was over, they stopped showing up to the market. Paul retired early from the insurance firm. Someone egged their house. The "Bless This Home" sign was ripped off the porch one night and shattered in the driveway. I didn't do it. I didn't have to. Truth had a way of crawling into people's ears and setting fires. Linda tried to call me. Twice. Left voicemails full of trembling apologies and pleas. I didn't answer. What could she say? Sorry we kidnapped you, but we loved you so much. No. Too late. Rachel and I did an interview together. Sat side by side on a worn couch, holding a photo of the baby she never got to raise. We didn't cry for the cameras, we'd already cried enough. We just told the truth. When the anchor asked me, "Do you think this is justice?" I said, "It's not justice. But it's something. And that's more than they ever gave me." I still get messages, some kind, some cruel. But I don't care. The story's out now. It belongs to the world. And no one, can bury it again. It took time, longer than I thought, for the rage to settle. The truth went viral, yes. The world saw what Paul and Linda did. But when the spotlight dimmed and the internet moved on, I was left with something harder to navigate than outrage, myself. For 30 years, I was Eli Jensen. Good student. Quiet kid. Weekend lawn mower. I carried that name like a second skin. But now, every time someone called me Eli, it scraped against something raw inside me. Like hearing the wrong name on a headstone, so I let it go, not all at once, but piece by piece. I stripped that identity down to what mattered. Not the name. Not the stories Paul and Linda told me. But the truth, I was Elijah Carter. I always had been, and Rachel. Rachel made it easier to believe. She didn't try to rush things. She didn't smother me with the weight of missed birthdays or lost time. She just showed up. Coffee on Sundays. Old photos in shoeboxes. A laugh that echoed mine when I told stories from high school. Some nights, we'd sit on her back porch in Omaha and watch the dusk swallow the sky. No questions. No pressure. Just quiet company, the kind that only happens when two souls finally stop searching. She had a dog named Marley. I swear that mutt warmed up to me faster than I did to myself. It was awkward at first, calling her mom. I stumbled over it, like I was trying to pronounce a word in a language I'd forgotten. But one day, after she dropped off a box of my baby clothes she'd kept all these years, it slipped out, "Thanks, Mom." She froze. I did too. But neither of us corrected it, we just smiled. I started using Carter on job applications. Updated my ID. Switched it on my socials. The first time I saw my new name printed on a paycheck, I sat in my car and stared at it for 5 straight minutes, not because of the money, but because for the first time, it felt like I belonged to myself. Paul and Linda never reached out again. Not after the second voicemail I didn't return. I think they knew. I didn't need revenge anymore. I didn't need them ruined or dragged through more dirt. They had to live with the truth, and that was punishment enough. I had something better now. I had Rachel. I had answers. I had peace, not the kind you find at the end of a courtroom verdict. But the kind that wraps around your ribs slowly, like breath coming back after being held too long. I was never theirs to keep. I was never really lost, just waiting to be found. And now, finally, I was home. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because sometimes the truth doesn't come from a courtroom, it comes from finally being heard. Drop a comment if you've ever uncovered a family secret. Or if you believe that the truth always finds its way home. Turn on notifications for more stories that reveal what's hidden behind closed doors.